The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, as taken from the Journal of the Whills, Chapter 1, The Star Wars. Guess which beloved film that title was meant for? Before having chosen the heavily altered William Shatner James T. Kirk Star Trek mask by Don Post Studios, John Carpenter originally wanted Michael Myers to be wearing a clown mask, not too different from the one seen at the beginning of the original 1978 horror film. Do you know that Indy's hat changes throughout all 4 Indiana Jones films? Well, actually, the whole outfit changes, but that's a completely different can of worms. But it's true, and there's a simple explanation for this. Herbert Johnson, the original creators of the hats for the first 3 films, lost a hat block from Raiders of the Lost Ark, this hat here. And, well, when Temple of Doom was about to come out, they decided to use a shorter, more tapered hat block. And when Lucasfilm and the fans complained, they decided to find a hat block that was more similar to Raiders. Now, if you're asking what a hat block is what gives its hat its shape and height. As you can see, this Raiders on my head is tall and boxy, and that's what they wanted for Last Crusade. And they did! But when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was coming out, Herbert Johnson backed down, because they were like, we don't make hats anymore. They do make hats. They made Last Crusade hats, and that was about it. So they turned to the fans, and Mark Kidder became the proud maker of the hats for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You can buy his hats off PenmanHatCompany.com. It's fantastic. If you want to know the story, John Penman put a page called The Adventure Built Legacy. It's great. Go ahead and read it. Also, that lost hat block from Herbert Johnson, they found it last year. The Raiders hat block, they found it last year. And they're making Raiders hats again. Different Seasons is a collection of short stories by Stephen King. The most famous ones being The Body, which would become Stand By Me, and of course Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption. I want to focus on Shawshank right now. There's not too many differences between the literary work and the famous Frank Darabont directed picture, except for one major literary change, that being the description of Andy Dufresne. We all know Andy Dufresne as being played by Tim Robbins, and the description so aptly put by Morgan Freeman in the film looked like a stiff breeze would push him over. As to, in the book, he is described as thus. He was 30 years old. He was a short, neat little man with sandy hair and small, clever hands. He wore gold-rimmed spectacles. His fingernails were always clipped, and they were always clean. Keeping up with classic literature, Gaston Leroux had planned a sequel for Phantom of the Opera shortly after he released the original in 1911. The sequel was to follow Raoul and Christine on their honeymoon in Africa. Okay. And the Phantom was supposed to follow in suit, having faked his own death. Now, the ending is speculated, but from Gaston Leroux's notes, it appears that Christine was supposed to learn the error of her ways and leave with Eric in the end.
Why couldn't that have been my reality?
This sequel, of course, never happened, and the only sequel we got was Love Never Dies. The long-running and well-beloved UK sci-fi series, Doctor Who, was a much different beast in its original pitch meetings to the BBC a long time ago. It was meant as an educational children's program. The Doctor, who was still to be portrayed by William Hartnell, was to take the audience as his companions, and take them on adventures through space and time meeting historical figures. Each episode was to end with a moral, which was standard for children's shows back in the day, and then the Doctor was to drop the audience back on Earth until the next episode. But, of course, ideas grow and change, and Doctor Who is the much beloved entity we know it now.